She slammed her clipboard on my fence and yelled, "This whole farm violates HOA code." I froze for a second, not because I was scared, but because I didn't even live under an HOA. That was the moment everything started. One morning, just before sunrise, I was feeding the horses when a group of people in reflective vests walked up my driveway like they owned the place. The woman leading them, Karen, short blonde hair, sunglasses on before 7 a.m., started barking orders. "We're marking all non-compliant structures. That barn? Demolished by next week." I laughed at first, thinking it was a prank. "Lady, you've got the wrong property." "This isn't part of your neighborhood," she smirked. "Oh, it will be. The HOA just expanded jurisdiction. You'll get your notice soon." My stomach tightened. I'd bought this land 15 years ago, long before that suburban development even existed. My father built the barn with his own hands. There was no way these people could claim authority here. Still, they started walking around my yard, snapping pictures, tagging red stickers on my fences, and measuring things like they were inspectors. When I tried to block them, one of the men stepped forward, puffing his chest. "Sir, interfering with HOA officials is a finable offense," I said quietly. "Interfering with private property owners is trespassing." Karen leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume. "Don't test me, farmer. We've got city approval. You'll lose everything if you don't comply." Then she turned to her crew. "Mark the barn for demolition." My blood boiled, but I held my ground. "Touch that barn, and I'll have you all arrested." She raised her eyebrows. "Oh, really? You think the cops will listen to a man living out here in the mud?" That hit a nerve, but she had no idea who she was talking to. I watched them drive off, leaving behind those red demolition stickers. I stood there, fists clenched, my dog growling beside me. It wasn't just anger, it was something deeper, the kind of fury that comes from being disrespected on your own land. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my office, scrolling through old property records, titles, and boundaries. Everything was still in my name. Then I checked something else, a file most people wouldn't have. My father used to work in county zoning before he passed away. He taught me a lot about land law, and me? I'd served 8 years in the sheriff's department before retiring to take care of this farm. So when they came back the next morning with construction trucks and fake city papers, I was ready. Karen stepped out again, this time waving a clipboard full of what looked like official demolition permits. "Final warning," she said, smiling like she'd already won. I asked calmly, "You got those signed by the county inspector?" "Of course," she snapped. "We have full authority," I nodded. "That's funny. Because I just called the inspector. He said he's never heard of your HOA. Her face dropped for half a second before she regained that fake confidence. "You're bluffing," I smiled. "Am I? The sheriff's on his way too. You might want to stick around." That wiped the smile off completely. Her goons exchanged nervous looks, and one whispered, Karen, maybe we should go." "Quiet," she barked. "We're not leaving until—" But before she could finish, sirens echoed down the road. My old partner from the force, Deputy Miller, stepped out of his cruiser. "Morning, folks," he said. "Got a report about trespassing and impersonation of public officials." Karen's voice trembled. "This is all a misunderstanding," he cut her off. "Ma'am, you've been warned before about fake notices. Step away from the equipment." As her crew started backing off, I finally let out a slow breath. My hands were still shaking, but not from fear, from relief, from the feeling of taking back control of what was mine. Karen tried one last time, yelling from the passenger seat of her car, "This isn't over!" I called back, "You're right, it's not. I'm pressing charges." And that's when I saw it, the first real flicker of fear in her eyes. That morning, as the sun rose behind my barn, the red demolition stickers fluttered off the fence in the wind. It almost felt like the land itself was breathing again, and I whispered to myself, "You picked the wrong farmer, Karen." The next day, things got worse, way worse. I thought after the cops showed up, Karen and her crew would back off, maybe disappear for good. But people like her don't quit when they're wrong. They double down. By afternoon, I got a letter taped to my gate. It had the HOA's logo printed on top, all official looking, but the signature at the bottom, completely fake. "Notice of fine. Unauthorized agricultural activity," it read, Immediate payment required, $15,000. I actually laughed out loud. They were trying to find me for farming, on my own farm. But the laughter didn't last long. That evening, when I went to check the barn, the power was cut. The security cameras were down and one of my fences had been knocked over. Someone had broken in. My tractor's gas tank was slashed open, leaking all over the dirt. Whoever did this wanted to send a message. I knew exactly who. I grabbed my flashlight and followed the tire tracks that led from my property line straight toward the HOA subdivision road. It ended right behind Karen's house, a massive white two-story with perfect hedges and a big neighborhood watch sign by the driveway. I stood there for a minute, breathing hard, trying to decide if I should knock on her door or call the cops again. But something told me to wait. I needed proof, so I went back, fixed the cameras, and installed a few new hidden ones they wouldn't find this time. I wanted to see how far she was willing to go. The next morning she came back, but this time, not with her clipboard. She brought backup. A couple of guys in construction gear, a tow truck, and, get this, a man wearing a fake sheriff badge. They rolled up like it was some kind of raid. Karen got out first, shouting, "We warned you, farmer! You didn't comply with HOA rules, so your structures are being seized." I stepped onto the porch slowly, holding a mug of coffee. "You sure you want to do this again? Last time didn't go so well." "Don't test me," she hissed. "You've been officially fined and your appeal was denied." "By who?" I asked. "By the HOA board," I smiled. "Funny, because I checked with the county. Your board was dissolved 3 years ago." Her fake sheriff stepped forward, puffing up his chest. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." "Sure," I said. "But first, maybe you should show me your badge number." He froze. "Excuse me?" I sipped my coffee. "Yeah, see, I used to be a deputy myself. That badge looks cheap, like something from a Halloween store." Karen's face turned pale. "He's legitimate," she shouted. "Then he won't mind if I call dispatch to verify him." I pulled out my phone and started dialing. That's when the fake cop panicked. He mumbled something to Karen and quickly walked back to the truck. She snapped, "Coward!" and tried to keep her act together, but I didn't hang up the call. When the real sheriff's dispatcher picked up, I said calmly, "Hey, it's me, Jack. You might want to send someone over. Got a situation here. Same people as yesterday, pretending to be law enforcement." Karen's crew froze. She started shouting at them to get back in their trucks. But it was too late. 2 patrol cars were already turning into my driveway. The sirens cut through the air like justice itself. Deputy Miller stepped out again, shaking his head. "Karen, you didn't even wait 24 hours, did you?" "This man is lying. He's violating community standards," she cried. He looked at her flatly. "Ma'am, this is farmland, not your subdivision. You're trespassing again. And bringing a fake officer? That's impersonation and attempted fraud." Karen's confidence cracked. For the first time, she looked small. Really small. Her voice wavered. "He's lying about all this. He provoked us." Miller turned to me. "You have footage this time?" I smiled. "Every second of it." I handed him my phone showing the camera feed, clear video of her crew breaking the fence, the fake cop flashing his badge, and Karen ordering it all like some queen of chaos. That's when the backup deputy read her rights. The look on her face, shock, disbelief, fury, was pure karma. She screamed, "You can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president." Miller replied coldly, "Not anymore." As they led her to the cruiser, I leaned on the fence and said quietly, "Told you, wrong farmer." But deep down, I knew something was still off. This was too organized for just one crazy neighbor. Someone bigger was pulling the strings, and when I saw the black SUV parked far down the road, watching the whole thing without moving, my gut told me the real fight hadn't even started yet. That night, I couldn't shake the image of that black SUV sitting at the edge of the road. No headlights, no movement, just watching. Even after the cops took Karen away, the car stayed there until well past midnight. Something about it didn't sit right. The next morning, when I checked my security footage, the SUV was gone. But it hadn't come alone. There were 2 other vehicles earlier, stopping by the HOA office before heading toward my land. I drove into town straight to the county records office. The clerk, an old friend named Dale, looked up from his desk and said, "You again? Didn't expect to see you so soon?" "Yeah," I said, handing him the fake fine notice. "You ever seen anything like this?" He squinted at the paper, frowned, and whispered, "Jack, this logo's been out of use for 5 years. The HOA isn't even active legally. So who's sending these?" I asked. He hesitated. "Developers. The same company that built Karen's subdivision. They've been trying to push the old farmland owners out for months. There's money in those acres. Commercial zoning coming soon." My blood went cold. It wasn't just Karen being power-hungry, it was a setup. They were using the HOA's name as cover to scare me off my land. When I got home, I noticed new tire marks by the back fence again. Someone had been there while I was gone. Inside the barn, a corner of the wall looked freshly damaged, like someone was trying to find something. That's when it hit me. My dad had hidden some old land survey maps in that barn, the same ones that proved our boundaries reached further than anyone thought. If the developers got rid of me, they could grab an extra 20 acres for free. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a thermos of coffee and my rifle across my lap. Not to use it, but to remind myself I wasn't backing down. Around 2 a.m., I heard a truck engine in the distance. No lights again. It stopped near the barn. I watched through the scope as 2 silhouettes got out and started cutting through the lock. I called Deputy Miller quietly. "They're back," I said. "Stay inside, Jack," he replied. "We're on our way," but I wasn't about to just sit and watch. I flipped the floodlights on, and the 2 men froze like deer. "You boys lost?" I shouted. One of them yelled, "We have orders to inspect the property." "Funny," I said, "because I own the property." They bolted toward their truck, but before they could leave, Miller's cruiser came roaring down the dirt road, lights flashing. The men didn't even try to talk. They ran straight into the fields, vanishing into the dark. Miller looked at me and sighed. "They're not amateurs." They knew exactly what to look for. We searched the barn, and sure enough, the box with my father's maps was half pulled out from behind the boards. They had known exactly where it was. Someone had told them. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. A smooth voice said, "Mr. Harris, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Sell your land and all your problems disappear." I froze. "And if I don't?" The voice paused. "Then the problems won't." Click. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about Karen anymore. This was about power, greed, and people who thought they could crush a man just because he stood alone. But they didn't know my kind. They didn't know I had proof. They didn't know I had friends in law enforcement. And they sure didn't know that this land wasn't just dirt. It was my family's history. I looked out at the barn, sun rising behind it, and whispered, "All right. You want to fight? You got one?" By morning, I had a plan. I wasn't just going to wait for them to strike again. I was going to expose everything. I started by calling an old friend from my sheriff days, a guy named Cole who now worked in the county's investigation unit. When I told him about the fake HOA and the threats, he said quietly, "Jack, this sounds like a land grab scheme. We've had whispers about a group doing this in neighboring counties. That confirmed it. They weren't just after me, they'd done this before." Cole offered to help, but warned me, "Don't do anything that could backfire. Just gather proof." So I spent the next few days collecting every bit of evidence I could. Copies of fake notices, camera footage, license plate numbers. Then I noticed something in one of the videos. The same black SUV parked near my gate showed up 2 weeks earlier in a totally different clip back when I first saw Karen. That meant they'd been planning. This long before she ever showed her face. I went to confront her directly. She was out on bail, back in her fancy house like nothing happened. When she saw me walking up her driveway, she tried to shut the door, but I wedged my boot in. "Karen, I know you're not the one pulling the strings," I said. "Who's paying you?" She glared at me. "You think I'll tell you? You embarrassed me in front of the whole neighborhood. You did that yourself, I said quietly. Now tell me who's behind this. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, You'll regret it if you keep digging. They don't lose? Neither do I said, and walked away. That night I got another call, same smooth voice as before. You've been busy, Mr. Harris. That's a mistake. Not as big as the one you made threatening me, I replied. There was a long silence. Then the voice said coldly, Tomorrow morning. Your barn won't exist. They hung up. I didn't panic. Instead, I called Cole and told him everything. He said, We'll set up surveillance tonight. Just act normal. When darkness fell, I sat inside my house pretending to be asleep, lights off, watching the live feeds from my cameras. Around midnight, headlights flashed in the distance. A truck stopped near the barn and 3 figures got out, one carrying a gas can. I whispered into my phone, They're here. Cole's team was waiting half a mile down the road. Within minutes, unmarked vehicles surrounded the property. The men didn't even get a chance to light the match before they were on the ground, handcuffed. When the dust settled, Cole came up to me shaking his head. You were right. These guys are hired contractors. They've been paid by the same developer company I suspected. He handed me a folder from one of the suspect's trucks. Inside were printed emails and payment records from a company called Eastview Holdings, the same one that had funded the entire subdivision. The last email sent to the men read, Make sure the property is cleared by sunrise. HOA jurisdiction will extend after destruction. It all clicked together. The HOA, the fake fines, the threats, they were all tools. The company had been buying up land using intimidation, hiding behind the HOA's name to force farmers out. I stood there, wind whipping across the field, and said, They wanted to burn my history to claim my ground. Cole nodded. Well, now we've got them. Every single one of them. But even as relief washed over me, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone higher up still hadn't shown their face. The man behind that smooth voice, the one who made the threats, wasn't some local manager. This was bigger. And I was going to make sure everyone knew. By sunrise, my land was quiet again. For the first time in weeks, there were no trucks, no shouting, no fake notices taped to my fence. Just the sound of the wind moving through the fields. But peace didn't mean it was over. I knew the final move was coming, and it had to come from me. Cole's team had already handed the evidence to the county prosecutor, but I wanted something more permanent, something public. So I made a call to a local news reporter I trusted, a woman named Lydia who'd once covered my department years back. I told her everything. The fake HOA, the harassment, the night attacks, the developer's involvement, every detail. At first, she didn't believe it. Jack, this sounds like a movie plot, she said. Yeah, I replied. But the difference is, I lived it. She came out that same afternoon with her camera crew, recording the damage to the barn, the stickers, the video footage of the imposter cops, everything. Within 24 hours, my story hit the local news, and then it spread like wildfire. People across the county started calling in, saying they'd faced similar HOA threats. Some even mentioned the same company name. By the end of the week, Eastview Holdings was under investigation by the state attorney's office. Turns out they'd been buying out small landowners by force all across the region, faking HOA notices, even bribing local officials to approve false demolitions. When the warrants were issued, the police raided their main office downtown. And guess who was leading the operation that day? Cole. And me, right beside him. Inside, they found stacks of forged HOA documents, hundreds of property files, and tucked in a locked drawer, a phone registered to the same number that had been calling me. The voice that had threatened me belonged to none other than Richard Kane, CEO of Eastview Holdings. When they brought him out in handcuffs, he still tried to act calm. You think you've won, farmer? He sneered. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I didn't win. Justice did. The cameras caught every second. That clip went viral online within hours. Millions of people cheering as the untouchable developer was finally exposed. A week later, I was standing on my porch again, watching the sunset fall across my fields. The barn had a few scars, but it was still standing, just like me. My land was officially cleared from any HOA claims. sealed and recorded in the county records forever. Lydia's report ended up on national TV, and suddenly, I was getting letters from farmers all over the country, people thanking me for standing up, for not backing down, for showing that you don't need to be rich or powerful to fight back. You just need to be right. Miller dropped by one evening grinning. "Heard you're famous now," he said. I laughed. "I don't care about that. I just wanted to protect what's mine." He looked out at the horizon and nodded. "You did more than that, Jack. You protected every small landowner who ever got pushed around." I watched the last of the sunlight hit the barn roof and whispered, "Dad would have been proud, because in the end it wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving something bigger. That no matter how many fake authorities show up with their clipboards and lies, truth still has power. And as for the sign I hung on my gate the next morning, it read, 'Private property, no trespassing. This land fights back.